New York City. I plan on being in New York City in the near future.
President Donald Trump's border czar planning on bringing more ICE agents to New York City. How will this go with a new mayor starting in January? The director of ICE here in New York, Ken Gelano, answering the tough questions. Commissioner Jessica Tisch staying on the job, agreeing to continue her service during the Mamdani administration. Pix 11 with the exclusive interview following that announcement. And the 2026 midterm season underway. One of the biggest possible challenges, Councilman Ossé eyeing a run against Hakeem Jeffries. Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani weighs in when Pix on Politics starts right now.
This is Pix on Politics with Dan Mannarino.
And welcome to Pix on Politics, everybody. I am Dan Mannarino, and a busy week in local politics. We begin with a big statement from the Trump administration's border czar promising more ICE agents are coming to New York City. The move comes as the city prepares for a new mayor swearing in this January. And Mr. Mamdani not shy with his feelings about ICE operations. So today I'm speaking with the director of ICE operations here in New York, Director Ken Gelano, and he is going on the record. Hey, Mr. Gelano is joining me. Great to have you back on Pix on Politics. Good to see you.
It's good to see you again, Dan.
It's been a minute.
It's definitely been a minute, yes.
So let me start with the comments made by Mr. Homan this week. And I want to play them right now for our audience and then get your reaction.
Sure.
In New York City, I plan on being in New York City in the near future. We're going to do operations in New York City. We know in New York City, me and Mayor Adams at one point had an agreement to let ICE into Rikers Island so we can arrest the public safety threats and the safety and security of that facility, but the city council shut it down.
So what does he mean? Can you further explain what that means? More operations will be coming to New York City.
So basically, and it's funny to see that and to hear what people are saying. The operations have been in New York City. Obviously, you know, in the past, we've spoke about it, and I've worked with Mr. Homan several occasions, and he was instrumental in working with the Adams administration and trying to get us back into Rikers Island. But the majority of the work that they were doing was still on the criminal aspect with the criminal warrants and not as much as the civil immigration enforcement.
I think people hear that and they think, okay, well, yes, they are here, but are there going to be more operations than we've already seen play out?
Well, the operations have increased, obviously, with the new administration and Secretary Noem and Director Lyons. We've got additional resources. You've seen the whole of government approach. Mm-hmm. That's out in the United States now, and we have all these different law enforcement agencies with been designated with Title VIII authority. So we're out in the field with our partners from the FBI, from the DEA, from the Marshals, from HSI, so and from IRS, CI. All of these people are out with us, and we're out every day in New York City and across the country. Yeah. So when he says additional folks, obviously, as you see, there could be surges in different areas across the country, and they take into account depending on operations that you want to run.
Yeah, I want to zero in on surges here in New York City because originally this was deemed to go after the worst of the worst. Hearing from Mr. Homan, there's going to be the increase in enforcement. Hearing you talk about this as well, what do you determine is worst of the worst?
So basically, it's always been the same throughout ICE and ERO. Throughout my career, which is spanning 33 years now. We focus on public safety threats, the worst of the worst. The problem is, as you see in sanctuary cities, like New York, the individuals and all the criminals are released back into the community without NYPD or Department of Corrections contacting us because of the policies that have been enacted by the prior administration or the city council. So that forces my officers and my staff to go out into the field looking for them. Obviously, as we're out in the field looking for these criminals, we're also encountering other individuals that are illegally present in the United States. Mm-hmm. So those individuals are in violation of immigration law, and they will also be arrested. And
that's not deemed worst of the worst.
So when you're looking for the worst of the worst, that's what we're out doing. If you come across another individual that's with the worst of the worst, sometimes some of these people are conspirators or co-conspirators with them, and we are arresting those individuals. So people say, well, if they're here and their only crime is being here illegal, why are you going after them? Well, number one, they're here illegally, and that's against the law. That's the INA, the Immigration Nationalization Act. And number two is the other side to that is So what you're saying, if they're only here illegally, we have to wait till they commit a crime to arrest them.
Well, that's just assuming that they're going to commit a crime. But folks that, let me just, because you're talking about this, let me go to the incidents that are happening at courthouses. People who are here illegally but are trying to get their natural pathway to citizenship. Should they be targeted in a courthouse while they're trying to do the right thing?
So each one of those is a case-by-case basis. Obviously, we focus on those that have violated their status because of prior an arrest after their release. The problem is during the Biden administration, he let in close to 15 million people under a program that was ineligible for that with the parole. So we are backtracking and trying to find all these individuals now. And obviously, if we know individuals are attending a court proceeding, we're going to execute the arrest there.
You know, a lot of people are looking at whether or not the surge might be because of a new mayor-elect who is coming in, Zohran Mamdani. I spoke to him this week. He said, yes, we have sanctuary city status. We're going to maintain that as well as welcome immigrants. I want you to listen to what he had to say.
Sure.
If she is tipped off like she was, what do you want her to do?
I want her to ensure that no officers are assisting with the actions of ICE.
So I was talking about the police commissioner who's remained on staying on here. What is your response to that they will not coordinate?
Well, look, the public safety works best when law enforcement is coordinating and collaborating with each other. I understand the sanctuary policies are in place. We don't need their assistance to go out and affect our arrest. We only need their assistance when there's an individual that the NYPD has arrested or is in custody of Department of Corrections to contact us before they release them. They're criminals.
I want to talk about a couple of things that have played out in recent weeks, right? One of them being in Lower Manhattan, and it looked like a militarized scene on the streets of Canal Street to go after these illegal street vendors, right? Masked agents in these tank-like vehicles, right? First, what we're looking at is Washington Heights here. So let me start there, because there's an incident in Washington Heights where a man was pulled out of his car. The local city council member said that a 911 call was placed by NYPD officers. They showed up. The NYPD officers didn't know they were ICE agents because they were masked, not in identifiable clothing, and those officers ended up in the hospital. What do you say to that?
So I think that's two different stories you're talking about, but I'll go back and answer the question on the individual in the Heights.
Yeah, let me start there.
That individual, and this is why one of the reasons I did come back out of retirement is to dispel these rumors, because I'm disgusted with the way the media is portraying us without getting the facts.
Okay.
So in this case, this individual was arrested up in the Heights, further up, and was being transported back to the office. As the officers were driving him back, he tried to escape from the vehicle by breaking and going through the window. So the backup vehicle came out and ensured the subject did not escape by pushing him back in. So the fact is that the media is saying that we try to rip him out of the vehicle to make the arrest just goes to show you that the media, the activists, the politicians are running with any story that is demonizing the work that we're doing, that we're empowered to do by Congress, and it's causing the assaults of my officers and across the nation.
What happened to those two NYPD officers?
That's a totally different story.
What happened there?
That one was when we were, an individual ran on us.
Yeah.
So we arrested the individual, and NYPD was in the area, and they just assisted with the arrest. So
How did they end up in the hospital?
I don't know anything about that.
Okay, because what they were reporting, the reporting from Gothamist was that the NYPD got into a scuffle with the ICE agents who wouldn't identify themselves.
That's incorrect.
Okay, what do you say, though, overall, to the fact that there are these ICE agents who are masked, sometimes not in identifiable clothing? There's legislation that are trying to push forward now to get them to not wear masks. Should they be masked in these operations?
Well, look, a traditional law enforcement agency obviously doesn't wear masks. The problem is you have not only politicians, you have high-ranking members in cities and states, you have NGOs, you have activists, and all their sole focus is to dox these individuals, put their information online and go after their families. Besides the assaults, the doxing and death threats against ICE officers is up 8,000%. What other law enforcement agency has people shoving cameras in their faces, cursing at them, trying to ram them with vehicles when they're doing their job? This is a job we're doing. So if the mask provides them the stability and the peace of mind of not having their family doxed or threatened.
But they're also plain clothed.
Correct. But they also have their vests on that are clearly marked with police, and they have badges. So This is an issue that I know some of the states want to raise.
Yeah.
But if you put yourself in the shoes of my staff that is just doing the job that they have been told to do, that has been empowered and has been backed by Congress, and we are following the law, this whole rhetoric that's being pushed is really demonizing the staff.
I know you're mentioning the media, which is why you're here, and I'm glad we're having the conversation.
Absolutely.
I know you're answering some tough questions here, but on the militarization of what we kind of saw play out in Lower Manhattan, people are wondering, yes, you have a job to do, but is that level of force necessary?
Well, obviously, each operation is case-by-case basis. It was an intelligence-driven operation, that one, and we had a lot of intelligence that the people that we were going after, the criminals, had some serious criminal background. And, you know, there was many of them, and they're known in the past through encounters with NYPD or even with ourselves to be very assaultive and combative. So that's the way you plan for an operation like that.
Okay, you're going to stick around because I want to get a couple more questions with you on
Sure.
our Pix Plus platform, but I appreciate you being here once again for this conversation. Okay?
Absolutely. I'm glad to come. I want to educate the public and explain to them the important work that we're doing and dispel the rumors that are out there.
And more with Mr. Janello on Pix Plus. Everybody stay tuned for that. But still to come, NYPD Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch agreeing to stay on during the Mamdani administration. The two honest about where they differ, but vowed to work towards the common goals for New York City. So next, part of my exclusive interview with the mayor-elect, the first sit down since that big announcement of Jessica Tisch. Picks on Politics back in just 2 minutes.
You're watching Picks on Politics with Dan Mannarino.
And welcome back to Picks on Politics, everybody. So we learned this week that Jessica Tisch will stay on as police commissioner during the Mamdani administration. Mr. Mamdani had been vocal, even before his election victory, that he wanted Tisch to remain in that role. And I had the chance to go one-on-one with the mayor-elect immediately after the news broke that Ms. Tisch agreed to stay on. Here's part of our conversation. Obviously, the choice, I'm hearing you listen very carefully on what you're unified on, but there are some disagreements that have been widely reported on. You and I have discussed them many times, right? So I want to go through a couple of them.
Please.
She openly has said she wants more police officers, and there is this whole talk right now that there could be a mass resignation once you take office. Have you discussed the number of officers? I know you say you want to stay the same, but if you lose some, and she wants to bring on more, are you open to that?
You know, I've said time and again that the amount that we had budgeted through the course of this campaign, that's the amount that we need in New York City. And frankly, the issue that we're facing is not the question of how many more officers we'll hire, but as you've said, how many officers we'll be able to keep. Because through the course of this last year, we've seen that the NYPD has a retention crisis. And it's a crisis that when you ask rank and file officers, it has less to do with the question of who the mayor is and more to do with the amount of work they're being asked to do. These are officers who signed up to do the work of policing. And yet they're often being asked to do the work of the mental health crisis or the work of the homelessness crisis. I mean, in a year alone, the NYPD will respond to 200,000 mental health calls. And so that's why, in addition to retaining Commissioner Tisch and building out an NYPD that is delivering public safety in the manner that we've seen under her, we're also going to be creating a Department of Community Safety that will be tasked with the mental health crisis, tasked with homelessness, tasked with a lot of the things that right now officers are being asked to do, because you can't separate the fact that in 2020, the police response time was less than 11 minutes. Today, it's closer to 16 minutes. A lot of this is because of everything we're asking them to do.
So how do you retain the officers? If you're not going to increase the numbers, how do you retain them? Do you pay them more?
I think the key thing here is you make sure they have a quality of life where they can actually do the work we're asking them to do. That means that you have the Department of Community Safety taking on mental health crisis, taking on homelessness. When you talk to officers, especially around the question of forced overtime, what happens is you have an officer who's told they have a few days off. They plan with their family for that time, and at the last minute they're told, take the first day, keep the third day, but you're going to come back on the second day. Obviously, that means that nothing can go forward as they'd hoped. A lot of that has to do with the fact that we're asking those officers to do the work that could be done elsewhere.
The police commissioner has also said that she wants the authority to discipline officers. You've said you want to pass that off now to the Civilian Complaint Review Board. What was that conversation with the police commissioner? Is she going to have final say for disciplinary action?
So when I've been speaking to the commissioner, but also when I've been speaking to New Yorkers, I speak about outcomes. And we talked about with the NYPD, safety and justice is what we have to deliver, but also accountability. And right now, what we see is that the CCRB has to deal with questions of petty politics and budget battles. In 2024, under this current mayor, the CCRB had to drop at least 700 cases due to a lack of funding. And so what I've said, whether it be to the commissioner or to the people of the city, is that I'm going to put an end to that by fully funding the CCRB so that no longer are we having to question whether we can follow through on a case because we don't have the requisite amount of money.
So who has the final say?
Under the city charter right now, that's the commissioner. The question is, can the CCRB even follow through on the complaints? I'm going to make it my job to follow through on that by fully funding the
But for the time being, she will have final say for disciplinary action until you figure out the funding issue.
Yes, that's within the city charter, and the funding issue has to do with whether the CCRB can actually take up the cases.
And I want to stay on the disagreements, just because I think it's so important, and you're going to get them. You get these questions. Yeah. Public safety is huge.
And
so
actually,
many
even
New Yorkers.
before you go on, I'll just say, disagreements are often cited as an issue within our politics, within our city hall, but I also think it's an example of the healthy kind of approach we have to delivering for New Yorkers. It's not to surround yourself with people who agree with you on every single thing. It's to surround yourself with people who are committed to excellence and outcomes.
Yeah, I think that people are going to look at it and say, well, how can you get to those positive outcomes of public safety if you disagree on things like the strategic response group? She wants to keep it, you want to get rid of it. Where did you land on that?
I continue to have my concerns around the strategic response group because there are concerns around the fact of whether we can ensure that we're not only protecting New Yorkers, but also New Yorkers' ability to exercise their First Amendment rights. And I see with the commissioner a shared belief in the importance of that exercise, as well as being able to protect New Yorkers. And I think when you look at No Kings, the protest where we had tens of thousands of New Yorkers come out in the streets and voice their displeasure with the federal administration that has been going after them time and time again, we saw that that was not only an exercise of their First Amendment rights, but also something that they were able to do safely.
Yeah, this is fitting. This is while we talk about public safety, right? We hear the sirens going. So just to stay on that for a moment, the strategic response group, is it going away, or was that a negotiation that she wanted to keep it?
No, I've made clear my concerns. I don't think that the NYPD strategic response group should be how we respond to protests, and that's something that we'll be following through.
So it's going away?
We're going to have a different response, one that actually fulfills the objectives that we're talking about.
A lot can be said about how Eric Adams handled the NYPD, and Keyshawn Sewell was his first pick for police commissioner, and she left saying, well, I couldn't run the department how I wanted to. How do you plan to run the NYPD? Is it going to be fully her department? Are you hands-on approach? How did you leave that meeting and that agreement on who's going to run the day-to-day?
Frankly, the agreement and the meeting that I had with the commissioner is akin to the meetings and the agreements that I have with anyone that I'll be hiring, which is that I'm hiring to do their job. They should do their job. I should not be the one doing it. If that was the case, then I would simply be handling every single aspect of city business. And I'm also the mayor of this city. I'm responsible to the 8.5 million people. I'm accountable to them. And so I will be responsible in that way. I will be the one who has the final decision, and I'm also trusting the people that I hire to do their work.
So what did you leave? Did you give anything up from what you campaigned on to what she wanted? Was there something on the table that was negotiated upon to get her to stay?
I spoke to the commissioner about the fact that I am looking to keep her in this position because of the work that she has done, not because of the idea that I have of overhauling all of it. It's about building that together. This is a commissioner who's shown that she's interested in accountability, in taking on corruption, in reducing crime. Those are three things that I'm very much interested in fulfilling and building upon. And the things that I've spoken about during the campaign, as much as we talk about differences of opinion, there's also a real shared alignment. Both the commissioner and I have an agreement on the fact that the police should not be asked to handle the fact that our social safety net is coming apart at the seams. That is a responsibility for city government, because the more that we ask officers to do that, the less that we can ask them to focus on that which New Yorkers want police officers to be dealing with, which is violent crime and serious crime.
All right, still to come, everybody. We discuss a lot more in my sit-down with Mayor-elect Mamdani, including the news that City Council member Ossé filed paperwork to challenge House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Mr. Mamdani says it may not be the time for that. That clip has gone viral. We'll have more after this.
You're watching Picks on Politics with Dan Mannarino.
All right, and there is no rest in the world of politics. Shortly after the November elections, local leaders began announcing their campaigns or setting the groundwork for the 2026 midterm elections. Yeah, here we go already. New York going to see a lot of changes. So let's begin here. Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez says that she will actually not seek another term after 30 years in office and more. Grace Meng will be primaried by former diplomat Chuck Park, and perhaps the most notable, City Councilmember Ossé, filing paperwork to make a run against House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. It is clear the Democratic Socialists of America want to build on Mr. Mamdani's momentum and make big changes. However, as you'll see in my conversation with the mayor-elect, he isn't 100% on board with that idea. As you've seen, your election has created a lot of buzz. Now that the midterms are underway, that seems to be the focus, but your name is still being dragged into the midterms, right? Let me talk about Hakeem Jeffries for a moment, who now may face a challenge from Ossé, who is a member of the DSA. You said that there are local issues that Mr. Ossé should be focused on, maybe should remain a councilman. Are you saying he should not run against Hakeem Jeffries?
No, I'm saying that I think the focus should be right here on New York City. I respect the work that Councilmember Ossé has done in the council.
But what does that mean? Should he not run?
I think that right now is not the time to be engaging in that kind of a primary. I think the focus should be on delivering on this affordability agenda.
And what do you make of your name kind of being pulled into this? You know, for example, Dan Goldman versus Brad Lander, and whether or not that's going to be a thing with Alexa Aviles, who is a member of the DSA. Folks saying, well, Mr. Mamdani is going to support Mr. Lander. Does he have your support?
You know, I haven't made any formal endorsements in any of these races. And I think, you know, I had the other day someone reach out to me and say, I didn't know you were considering that person for a commissioner. And I was like, I didn't know I was either. There's a lot of things that I'll read in the newspaper, which will be news to me as well.
Yeah.
And I think what New Yorkers should know is that every day I wake up and I think about the affordability agenda. I think there will always be an attempt to make it a story about something else. But the most important thing is, can New Yorkers afford this city?
Do you see it as a moment for the DSA as a whole, as they now chart to challenge some of these institutionalized names? Do you see it as a moment?
I think the moment in this time right now for members of New York City DSA and New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs is the opportunity to fulfill the agenda that brought so many into politics, which is, how do we make life easier for working people? That's what has animated so many for so long. Now the difference is we have the opportunity to deliver on it.
All right, my full interview with him is now posted on pix11.com, and we'll be right back with a look at the week ahead. And our election coverage never stops around here. Coming up this Tuesday, big night. The 2 candidates in the runoff election for Jersey City Mayor, James Solomon and Jim McGreevey, going head-to-head for big debate night right here on Pix11. That is Tuesday night at 6:30 p.m. We'll have post-show with our Henry Rossoff at 7 p.m. And that'll do it for another episode of Pix on Politics, everybody. You miss a minute, you miss a lot. I'm Dan Mannarino. Have a great day and a great Thanksgiving.